Well, hello everybody. This is Sara Kolata with Architecture Talk Tank. Today with Jason Boyle from Manchester. Very excited to finally meet and talk to Jason. He's been quite an internet sensation recently with his new YouTube channel and also being really active on LinkedIn. So it's really just a great opportunity to get to know him a little bit better and also through this platform introduce his work to the community. So Jason, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you do and yourself?
Oh, firstly, thank you so much for this live, and yeah, we've yeah, I think LinkedIn is definitely a platform that I've really been interested in, probably for the last 3 years. But I have to admit, I am moving a little bit, kind of spending a little bit more time on one called Clubhouse. That's a fantastic, and I see it like as an audio version of LinkedIn. So I'm just putting it out there for people. LinkedIn's still great, but definitely Clubhouse is also really cool as well. And yeah, I'm an architect in Manchester. I do nuclear buildings, which is quite unusual.
Very.
And I love to mentor as well. So that's kind of me. Yeah.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what nuclear buildings about.
Yeah. So I think this is, I mean, again, it's all sort of public information, but essentially we've got a legacy in the UK of nuclear waste, which needs dealing with, and the we're working for a site license company whereby we're taking the waste and we're kind of packaging it and making it safe, essentially for the UK and for the rest of the world. So it's kind of yeah, it's challenging actually. The big storage facilities, but they're also facilities where we're actually, dealing with the waste and creating new buildings. And I think it's one of the biggest construction sites in Europe at present.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Wow. And that's around Manchester, is it?
It's in Cumbria, so it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite remote, which I think these sort of places have to be, and it's by the sea as well. So yeah, it's about a two and a half hour journey to get there.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you say you're also mentoring. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I decided to. I think it was after I got my fellowship with the RIBA, and they kind of asked me what I was kind of going to use my fellowship for, and I kind of gave it a lot of thought. What do I really want to do? And I really did give it some thought, and I said, look, I really want to help people. So I spent kind of 3 years helping people and mentoring people just to build up my skills to actually see if I could contribute to people. Because I mean, it's all right, people declare themselves mentors. I see it all the time. But actually, you might not be that good at it because it does take a certain type of person, I think. So I've kind of honed my skills over the last 3 years, and I've got some really great results, from people. I'm willing to share some of the results, but it's yeah, I just love it.
So you said you wanted to help people, and it's specifically to do with which exact section of architecture? Is it business?
Yeah, it's business. It's definitely about mindset, and it's about trying to raise the game within architecture too. It's a tough world out there. We know architecture is a tough profession, and I think there's not enough architects out there that are business savvy. You see practices going bust all the time. You see the architects do it for the love and not the money, but it is a business as well. And I just wish it was taught more at universities. So I'm on a little bit of a crusade. I know there's a number of people like yourself who have maybe a similar mindset to the business of architecture. And I think it's, if we can talk about it more and get that information out there into the community, then the students at the university will start asking for, can we have, people who understand the business of architecture coming into the universities and teaching. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is needed. And I do envision a future where this is possible, really. And curious to know where architecture would really go as a profession if we had that kind of education from the very beginning, because I think that there would be more room for innovation.
Yes.
So that's really great. And it sounds like you started very much one-on-one working with architects. So from your experience, can you tell us a little bit more about your key findings and key issues that you come across as you work with architects?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but I kind of I wrote a couple of articles first of all, based on the experience of working with a number of different architects. It's called The Broke Architect, and there's part one, which is kind of based on survey information I conducted on LinkedIn. So I've got quite a lot of people responding to this survey, and there was this common theme with it, with salaries and pay and practices that had gone bust. And so I went on to this to kind of understand why this happens. And it seems to be very much a culture which starts and begins in the universities, and of late nights, of working incredibly hard, which I'm sure other professions do. But it kind of results in them not understanding what the business is and the value. So I compared other professions with architecture, and they study for a similar period of time, and the the results are that architects just do not get paid well enough for than other similar professions. So that's where it started, and this is what I was talking about last night in Clubhouse. We had this 2 hour discussion with architects in the room, students in the room, talking about salaries and money, and trying to understand. And it's a problem internationally. It wasn't just UK, it was America, it was people, from the rest of Europe, and they all had the same issue within architecture. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's definitely quite it's a little bit, I would call it like a culture of psychosis, because from the very beginning you're being taught to stay long hours. And at the beginning, I remember when I was at school, I was kind of proud of it, like, oh yeah, I just did all-nighters, and it was normal to do 3 in a row and whatever. But there comes a point where you just really start valuing your health a little bit more than this lifestyle of working for practice and working with this kind of level of intensity, and you start realizing that it's quite hard to escape it, and that it's not a given that if you start working in a profession already, for an office, like with most of the careers, if it's 5 p.m. you can go home. A lot of times when there is, especially around deadlines, it's expected from you to stay longer. And I noticed that to be quite prominent also in the internships. And so basically it just seems to be like a cultivated culture, where I think at some point it really can be dangerous for a lot of aspects, including mental health. And I know that with some of the videos that you recorded under the Broke Architect, you talked a little bit about mental health. So do you want to comment on that a little bit as well?
Yeah. I mean, it started off, I did actually a post a year ago about an architect who jumped off the Washington Bridge in New York, and he was working for a very well-known practice, international practice, and took his own life essentially. And I started doing some more research about how prevalent this is within architecture, and more people have kind of come forward, following that post, where I highlighted the fact that architecture is a really stressful profession, and it's often, I believe, it's underpaid. So that kind of pressure on people, and them long hours which we were talking about, and staying back to try and finish these deadlines, has an impact on a lot of people. And a lot of people have come forward to me to talk about this, and I've got some quite interesting YouTube videos coming up in future where people have actually reached out to me to talk about this, and that's what I want to kind of talk about on the YouTube videos, kind of this culture within the profession. We can talk about money, we can talk about mental health, but we should also look at how we can solve it. What are what are the ways we can kind of make a healthier profession? And I think that's really critical. We need healthy people. You function so much better at work if you enjoy your work, if you're doing exercise, you're mentally strong, and you have a much better life. You're going to get much better architecture. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. So.
No, I agree that the quality of projects is different, but also I think just co-working environment with other team members and your colleagues. I think that, architecture can get quite like stressy, and it's a hectic environment to be a part of for many hours in a day. I've just recorded my new podcast that's coming out tomorrow, and it talks about the fact that actually within our career in a lifetime we spend 80,000 hours, which is quite a crazy number if you think about it. So what's the quality of how you spend that time, and what do you do in that time it's important, because if it really defines such a huge chunk of your life, what happens on that day when you look back at it, when you're already retired, or maybe, like this famous moment of when you lay on your deathbed and you look back at your life and you say, okay, what have I done and how did I spend it, and was this a life of stress? And I think that it's a kind of, it comes to a point in everyone's career, be it an architect or anyone else, where you just start saying, is this not too intense for me? Especially when you have a family or other things also take priority in life. You can't just live just for architecture, just only for your career. There are moments where you commit and devote to it more. And then there's moments when you kind of look for the optimum, where you can really enjoy what you're doing, but also say no to things that maybe are draining, or they are just not to the standard of how you want to, basically involve yourself with your career, with clients, with projects, with whatever it is. And I think that, it's quite an important topic, because when we talk about value, when we talk about our mission, our why, our passion, our involvement with architecture, and the purpose behind what we do, really, it's kind of a key ingredient is to also ask ourselves, like, how do we spend that time whilst we are involved with architecture? Am I mostly tired, whilst I do it? Do I feel like I'm being underpaid most of the time? Do I feel like, I'm disconnected from my life purpose or from the mission, because I'm doing something that doesn't feel that significant? Which is a case, it's a case, especially when you work for really big corporations, and, you're just kind of like, your role is very small in the huge grand like scheme of things if it comes to project delivery and things like that. So I think also those things are valid aspects to look into in everyone's life. And I think that it's great to cover and talk about this also openly through these platforms, and that's surely what I try to do with my work, because I find it to be almost a key element that can drive change forward. We can blame the system or say it's because that's how it is or whatever, but at the end of the day, it is also like that because you agree for it to be a part of it, right? So if more people would say, listen, it's not okay for me, then some change would have to happen, either on this individual scale or a greater scale. And I am all about change, basically. I think that life is about change, and we just can't stay the same.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I agree with what you said about the disconnect as well. If you're finding that disconnect within a sort of large practice, and you don't feel, I don't know, you're a small part in the overall project, that's also bad. And that's within practice, when you're actually practicing in the office. And we've had that disconnect with coronavirus, with the pandemic. So now we're even more remote, and that's even more impacted. And I don't know. I've just heard a lot of stories from people who contact me about some really poor practices of architects. Um, you know, with people keeping their webcam on and spying on people. This is all stuff that's been in the press, and I just find. I'm sure architects are not the only people doing it. In other professions, it must be happening as well. but that all puts pressure onto the person who's working. So I'm all about changing that culture, and that's what I'm trying to do on LinkedIn, and trying to talk about it and make it open. And yourself, I think you align to what my thinking as well.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and so then that feeds into the mentoring, and trying to get into that mindset. And that we last night was a fantastic discussion, and everyone in the room last night said, salary and money is not talked about. It's talked about in the pub after you finish work, and then people talk about it, but it's not talked about within that sort of working time. And I think everything should be open and transparent in my eyes.
Absolutely. I agree. And I just think that wherever there is a taboo, there is obviously like a difficulty to even start that topic. And we feel like we're not entitled to, like it's somehow off limits, but it's extremely important. And, that really ties into the topic of value, which is, again, a big topic of conversation for me with my work. Also with the podcast that I do with Simone de Gaulle, where we talk about value of various things. But they all really tie, and that's what I'm starting to realize, especially after looking into all these different aspects over the course of the months, that it really starts with you in a way. Like you personally, like if you feel really uncomfortable asking for a pay raise, then and I understand the fear of losing a job or whatever, but I think it's very much about like if you like don't understand your own personal value, it's hard to assert it also, whether it's on a client, on your employer, or even your own value in the team, dynamic, etc. So there's a lot of that psychology that comes in play. And I think that because certain topics are of limits, we don't put enough attention and focus onto them. And this is why, there is this problem of like either a lack of education in certain aspects, or even like the lack of like sort of psychologic, I guess, attention that needs to be addressed also in the architecture industry, because as we just spoke about in this short talk, 17 minutes so far, we already mentioned so many different issues on the mental sort of issue scale, and psychology and relevancy to your pay, to to how the career looks like, etc. So I think those are all very valid topics, and it's great really that you've been active on Clubhouse. Tell me a little bit more about Clubhouse, because it happens to be that I use an Android phone, and it's an app only for, doesn't it? It's for iPhones, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to move across to Android. I think it's just maybe
it was because I'm having that FOMO thing where like, wait, what's going on? Like,
yeah, you're not part of the conversation.
It feels like everyone's going to a party, which I'm not. Like,
you are invited. You're invited, but you will get there soon, I'm sure. Or you could just swap your phone.
I've looked into it, but then it was also like considering like how much of a proper like reason is that to switch from my Android to an iPhone just because of Clubhouse. Tell me about it. Tell me more about this. Maybe it will also help more people to join the conversation.
Yeah, so I have done a YouTube video on it, but I will give you a brief kind of response to that question. So Clubhouse is audio based. It's essentially where you can drop into, like, imagine you go into when we could attend events where you'd have someone speaking on stage and you're in the audience. So when you enter a room, just imagine it's like an auditorium. So you'll have someone on stage, which will be a moderator or a speaker. And then if you want to go onto stage and speak and share your point of view, you can raise your hand, and then the speaker will invite you onto stage. And you might have, sometimes in some rooms, maybe 5 or 6 up to 20 people on stage. And there's a certain like etiquette in there, and sort of people will, speak, then say the point, then go on mute. And it's kind of a way where you can title the room well about what you want to talk about. So, for example, last night it was salaries in architecture, and it was very well, there was a lot of people attending there. Tonight I'm doing one on mentoring with an American architect. So we're discussing about the differences between, UK mentoring, and American mentoring. And the night before, oh God, what was the night before? We were discussing LinkedIn, how to succeed on LinkedIn and TikTok. So I had the #1 architect on TikTok talking about, how to create content, how to create a 1-minute architecture video. And he gets millions of views every time he releases a video. So we were kind of having them discussions. So yeah, so every night virtually I'm talking on different subjects, and I guess building a tribe of people. And but I think the best way is to co-host with people. I think if you're ever going to be on that platform, you need to regularly switch out with different people, because no one wants to hear me talking all the time. You need to have co-hosts. So every time I do something, I'm always with a different co-host, and that's a top tip.
Brilliant. It sounds great. It sounds really like something to be a part of. And yeah, it's a kind of replacing that more interactive environment in which we're missing on right now with Corona. So I think it just came out in the right time. Shame not for everything, Android and iPhone, but either way, it's great. And
I do invites if anyone wants them. First 2 to drop, I can send 2 invites.
Brilliant. Sounds great. So what do people have to do? Just contact you privately on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's all. And I can set them up.
Sounds brilliant. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining and telling us about Clubhouse, about your mentoring, about all the different research you've done in architecture and the great work that you're doing. Any mention or anything that you would like people to do to follow you, to tune in? We already know to write a message if we want to invite for Clubhouse, but where can people find you on social media?
I think if you can't get into Clubhouse, please subscribe to my YouTube videos, because that's where I'm pushing my attention to try and do some really, really great videos. I've got quite a lot of videos planned for this year. So if you just kind of subscribe and hit the notification bell, it'll notify you when my latest video is out. But yeah, happy to come on this live with you, and it's been really good fun.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jason, and thank you guys also for tuning in. And the talk tanks are happening right now Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5 p.m. Central European time. And again, also similarly, if you want to always be notified about these events, you can go to Sara Kolata YouTube channel, subscribe, and click the little bell for notifications. Thank you so much, and I'll speak to you all soon.